What do you say as a uh, general background student, as a researcher, as an academician? Which would be more safe for us to educate, to pursue, and for our future generation as well? Which should be more safe?
I think what is more safe, just because of the geopolitics, is Deobandi. Deobandi is more safe. It's more traditional, and it's mainly because Deobandi madrasas are decentralized, so they're more difficult to control. Deobandi madaris are based on a curriculum that, if you have the curriculum, then you can teach it and you can learn it, and therefore it's decentralized. Whereas, unfortunately, when it comes to Salafism, if you take that big concept, they don't have an established curriculum per se, unless they go to the teachings of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and they are teaching specific books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And these are dangerous books. They are dangerous because they teach for sectarianism. They teach hatred towards other Muslims. They teach mass takfir of other Muslims. And this is the ideology of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who was an 18th century revivalist, you could call him. But what he ended up doing is he ended up mass takfiring the Muslims of the Ummah, because he said they have violated Tawheed. He says that only I understand Tawheed, and even my teachers in Mecca and Medina, they don't understand Tawheed. And if you don't adopt my Tawheed, that means you're a mushrik, and you're even worse than the mushriks of the Quraysh in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have to fight you and do jihad against you. This is the ideology of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And not all Salafis accept this. Not all Salafis accept this, but unfortunately, many of them do. And it causes sectarianism. It causes constant civil war between Muslims. So this is a dangerous thing. This is a bad thing because it divides the Muslims and it causes conflicts that shouldn't exist. So this is why I advise against that strand. So it's safer. And also, this is very political because you have Gulf countries who are very committed to making sure that Muslims adopt this kind of Wahhabism. Why? Because Wahhabism also teaches a loyalty and allegiance to the Saudi state, to Saudi Arabia. And this is bad. This is very bad because, unfortunately, Saudi Arabia has proven itself to be liberalizing, has proven itself to want to get close to Israel and to even maybe adopt a kind of diplomatic connection to Israel, normalization with Israel. So if that happens, they will distribute this pro-Zionist Islam throughout the Muslim world. And who are they going to channel that through? Through these Salafi networks, these Wahhabi Salafi networks that exist in a country like Bangladesh, that exist in Pakistan, that exist in Malaysia, that exist in Turkey or wherever. This is how their network works. Now with Deobandis, that's just one example, but they are not centralized. They are decentralized. So there isn't one. If one branch gets corrupted, that's the other branches aren't going to immediately get corrupted at the same time. The madrasas aren't all going to get corrupted at the same time because they're decentralized. That's a protection in place that the Deobandis have that others don't necessarily have.
Brother, you mentioned about the decentralization, but Deobandi madrasa, particularly the Darul Uloom Deoband, other madrasas follows their fatwa. So how it is decentralized?
There's no obligation to follow their fatwa. There's no obligation to follow Darul Uloom Deoband. In fact, there are more authoritative. There can be more authoritative madaris in different parts of the world. So they have a diversity, actually, when it comes to fatwa. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, but there's not a requirement.
Okay, okay, brother. If I ask you, there are Salafis who doesn't follow Abdul Wahab. So, do you think this ideology without the Abdul Wahab is good?
As long as it's committed to traditional Islam, as long as it's committed to the schools of thought, the madhahib, then it can be good. Yeah, no problem. But if it's going to take a posture that no, we throw out the Islamic tradition and we go back to the Salaf and we ignore everything in between us and the Salaf, then this is dangerous. This is what creates modernism, and it should be rejected.
Oh, why it is dangerous? Like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us to follow the 3 generations. So why
Another thing, why it creates modernism? I didn't understand the thing. Why
Yeah, this is
modernism?
related. Good questions. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us these are the best 3 generations, so we should follow them. How can we follow the first 3 generations? Do you have like some, videos of them? Do you have some flash drives that have their statements recorded? Do you have like how do we know what the Salaf believed and what they did?
there are text of them. There are books that other people after them recorded through this text, which
Okay, so you're following texts compiled by people who came after. So
Yes.
you're following the people who came after them. You're not following them. You're following the people that came after them.
Yeah.
that's a valid argument. Okay, it's a valid.
Yeah, this is the claim. This is just a slogan that is being used, that we follow the Salaf. You don't follow other, the Deobandis or whoever, the Ash'aris, the Maturidis, the Deobandis, the whatever. They don't follow the Salaf. We follow the Salaf. Okay, how are you following the Salaf? No, you're following people who came later. You're following people who came later, who wrote books later. That's who you're following. And that's exactly what everyone else does. That everyone wants to follow the Salaf. Everyone wants to follow the Salaf. And how do you get to the Salaf? You have to go through a tradition. You have to go through other scholars. You have to go through other books in a chain. That's what the whole concept of an isnad, a sanad, like a chain that goes back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and goes back to the Salaf, but you can't access it directly. You can't access it directly because you don't have a time machine. You don't have a time machine. You don't have like specially recorded videos or audio that has been preserved in a time capsule that you can open and you can say, oh, this is what the Salaf said. You always have to go through the medium or the channel of a tradition. Everyone does that. No one can bypass that. The only way you could bypass that is if you have a time machine. So this is why that's why it becomes dangerous. That's why it leads to modernism. Because if you start saying things like, no, we reject all of the great ulama of the tradition, we reject the schools of fiqh, we reject the madhahib, we reject all this, we go directly to the source, then you're judging and you're interpreting Quran and Sunnah and the statements of the Salaf on the basis of your own understanding. And if you do that, you're going to be much more likely to make mistakes. You're going to be much more likely to choose things that are according to a modern logic or modern morality. The morality of a midget, as you were saying, from Muhammad Hijab. That's the kind of interpretation that you will have of the Quran and Sunnah. But if you say, no, I'm going to follow the giants that came before me, I'm going to follow the giant of Imam Abu Hanifa, for example, then and the other ulama, the scholars of the Hanafi school, that is going to keep you more safe from modernism, because when they were interpreting and understanding and conveying the Quran and Sunnah, they were not influenced by modernism. They weren't influenced by modern morality and feminism and liberalism and secularism. Therefore, their interpretation is going to be more correct. It's going to be more authentic and close to the truth, as opposed to if we try to interpret it based on our reason and our morality that is highly affected by the modern world.